When the HOA tyrant lost her power, a battle over a driveway gate. It all started with a small personal decision that would quickly snowball into a full-blown neighborhood war. I had spent months planning and saving for a new driveway gate, something sleek, modern, and private. It was a perfect way to shield my home from prying eyes, especially from the incessant surveillance of my neighbor, Lydia. You see, Lydia was not just another homeowner. She was the self-appointed guardian of our neighborhood's soul. And she had an issue with change. I knew she wouldn't approve, but that didn't bother me. My house was on the edge of the community, outside the HOA's jurisdiction, so I didn't need anyone's permission. The gate was legal, it was beautiful, and most importantly, it was mine. But Lydia couldn't stand it. The day the gate was installed, she was outside my house, scowling at it like it had personally offended her. I waved from the window, sipping iced tea, fully aware of what was coming. I was ready for the war that Lydia was about to declare. Sure enough, the next morning, I found a neatly folded note in my mailbox, emblazoned with the words, "Unapproved Structure Alert," in Comic Sans. Lydia had taken it upon herself to issue me a formal complaint, accusing me of violating the aesthetic harmony of the block. I couldn't help but laugh. The letter wasn't even official, just some personal vendetta wrapped in legal-sounding jargon. But it was only the beginning. A few days later, Lydia showed up at my front door. No knocking, no polite request. She just marched right up to my new gate and demanded I open it. She wasn't just concerned about the gate, she was furious about the aesthetic integrity of the entire block. "You can't just put up something like this. It's ruining the neighborhood's charm," she declared dramatically, arms crossed, as if I had committed an unforgivable crime. I leaned against the doorframe, casually handed her a copy of the county zoning regulations, and said, "Lydia, I'm not on your block. It's all legal, but feel free to double-check." Her face turned pale, and for a moment she seemed speechless. But then, true to her nature, she promised to take further action, and she did. The very next day, she called the police. She claimed my new gate was an architectural assault and that it had violated the community's values. The 911 operator was clearly baffled by her call, unsure how a driveway gate could be considered an emergency. As I watched the scene unfold from my security camera feed, I couldn't help but feel like I was in the middle of some dark comedy. When the police arrived, they quickly figured out that this wasn't exactly a criminal matter. "Are you reporting a crime, ma'am?" one of the officers asked. Lydia flailed her hands in dramatic fashion, shouting that the gate was destroying the visual integrity of the block. I stood there, unfazed, and calmly showed the officers the proper permits and inspections I had gone through. They reassured me, told Lydia to stop abusing emergency services, and left with barely a second glance at the gate. But Lydia wasn't finished. Her meltdown only escalated the situation, and in the following weeks, her campaign to rid the neighborhood of my ugly gate took on absurd proportions. She started printing flyers, going door to door with petitions claiming my gate was a psychological barrier to the community. But it wasn't just about the gate anymore. It was about control. Her need to be the neighborhood's moral compass, the one who decided what was allowed and what wasn't. Things took a bizarre turn when Lydia hosted a community review of my gate in her living room, turning her dining table into a mock courtroom. She accused me of compromising the neighborhood's cohesion and went on a tirade about how steel gates like mine didn't belong in our community. But I wasn't intimidated. I brought legal documents to her court, proving that my gate was fully compliant with the county's zoning laws. Her so-called HOA complaint was laughable. The final straw came when Lydia filed a lawsuit against me for causing emotional distress and neighborhood division. Her claim was that my gate had destroyed the community's spirit and even harmed her pet. The total damages? $5,000. In court, Lydia put on her usual dramatic show, but it fell apart the moment I presented my evidence. I showed the judge the zoning maps, the inspection approvals, and even a petition she had forged, complete with her dog's signature. The judge didn't just rule in my favor. She practically dismissed Lydia as a petty tyrant, ordering her to pay my filing fees. But that wasn't the real victory. Lydia's fall from power had begun. As word of her lawsuit and the courtroom embarrassment spread, neighbors who had once been silent started speaking up. People who had been too scared to challenge Lydia now rallied behind me, and soon enough, Lydia was removed from her HOA position. The community had had enough of her overbearing control. As the dust settled, Lydia tried to recover by staging a bizarre protest. One afternoon, she chained herself to my gate, calling it a stand for the neighborhood's soul. She sat there, sipping herbal tea like she was on some kind of peaceful retreat, her homemade sign proclaiming, "Defending the neighborhood's soul." I watched, bemused, as the police arrived, cut the chain with bolt cutters, and escorted her off the property. In the end, Lydia's tyrannical reign had crumbled, and the neighborhood finally found peace. People who had been living in fear of her petty rules now felt free to be themselves. A new spirit of community began to emerge, and as for my gate, it became a symbol of individuality, resistance, and the power of standing up to petty tyranny. But here's the twist. Lydia's defeat wasn't just a victory for me. It was a victory for the entire neighborhood. The battle had never been about a gate. It was about reclaiming control from someone who had used fear to maintain her dominance. What do you think, though? Was I justified in standing up to Lydia's control? Or was there another way to resolve the conflict without all the drama? What would you have done if you were in my shoes? Let me know in the comments.